We knew as soon as Aryna Sabalenka and Marta Kostyuk were drawn to play one another at the French Open first round this year, things were going to be a bit interesting, but it's just been nothing but mess. From the French crowd booing Marta to Sabalenka being pressed by a reporter in her press conference, we have a lot to talk about. Yes, Aryna Sabalenka and Marta Kostyuk opened play on Philippe Chatrier today at the 2023 Roland Garros Championships, and we knew coming into this one that there'd be some tension. Marta is Ukrainian and has been very outspoken about the current Russian-Ukraine war, previously saying that the Russian and Belarusian players should not be allowed to compete on tour. The 20-year-old has also said that she's going to refuse to shake hands with Belarusian or Russian players if she feels that they aren't outspoken enough about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Clearly, Kostyuk felt that Sabalenka didn't do enough to condemn the war, first opting to not take a pre-match photo with the second seed, then completely making a beeline after losing 6-3, 6-2, not giving Aryna a handshake or a racket tap. The French crowd started booing, and Sabalenka initially thought that they were jeering her, which is why she sarcastically bowed down to them, but she later realized that they were directing that to Kostyuk. Kostyuk said the French crowd should be embarrassed for booing her, and I completely agree. Unfortunately, the French crowd will boo a baby burping or someone literally passing out. They'll boo anything. Sorry to my French viewers out there, but the Roland Garros crowd is among the most ignorant ever in terms of tennis fans, so they probably weren't aware. A lot of them weren't aware of the context behind Kostyuk not wanting to give Aryna a handshake. They probably thought that she was just being a poor sport, losing. Marta continued to say, "I want to see people react to it in 10 years when the war is over. I think they would not feel really nice about what they did. Wimbledon banned them, Russian and Belarusian players, last year. And when I was in the UK last year, people were reacting to us differently, even on the street. I felt a lot of support. I'm pretty sure the reaction would be different." Aryna was understanding of Marta's decision to not give her a handshake, and she felt that she shouldn't have been booed. "I couldn't understand what's going on because we all know Ukrainian girls would not shake hands with us, so it's not a surprise for us, but probably the public today was surprised," Sabalenka said. "I understand why they're not shaking hands with us. I can imagine if they shake hands with us, what's going to happen to them from the Ukrainian side. I understand that this isn't personal, that's it. I think she didn't deserve to leave the court that way." Now, Aryna spoke to Tennis Channel's John Wertheim after the match, and she said that sports shouldn't be involved in politics, but that she's fine with the handshake snub if Ukrainian players feel better that way. Kostyuk holds a completely different viewpoint, saying before the match, "It's not politics. War is war. We know how Russia and Belarus act in this war. They shoot civilians, take civilians as prisoners, loot homes, and kidnap children. This is genocide of Ukrainian people, not politics. Aryna might become number one, having such influence in the world, and she refuses it. We're talking about people being murdered, and we hear leave sports out of politics. War doesn't choose if you're an athlete when it comes to your home. I don't have respect for her continuing to go to Russia, speaking to Russian press, not taking her family out of aggressor states despite having financial means. I couldn't accept myself if I stayed there, and people just continue to have fun the same as before." She held a similar sentiment last year, saying, "Sport is extremely political. Honestly, I feel like it's stupid when someone says sport is out of politics. It's really stupid." A month or so ago, Aryna spoke about the tensions between her and Ukrainian players, going as far as to say that many people hate her in the locker room for no reason. Sabalenka also said before this match that she has no hard feelings if Marta hates her. In her press conference after the match, Kostyuk said that she doesn't hate Sabalenka, she simply doesn't respect her for not speaking out against the Russian invasion.
I don't know, she has a big platform of people who support her. I mean, I speak out about things and I see it like, New York Times, Washington Post, so many like CNN, BBC, there's so many platforms that millions, billions of people in the world read. And just to reject her responsibility of having an opinion on the most important things in the world, I cannot respect that. She said that that I hate her. I never said publicly nor privately nor to anyone that I hate Aryna Sabalenka or any of the players. I just don't respect her because of her position in all of in this situation.
Aryna was given the opportunity to condemn the war in her press conference after a testy Ukrainian reporter said that should Sabalenka become world number one after Paris, she'll need to assume a more role model position. Basically, the reporter asked if she condemns or supports the war, and Sabalenka said that no Russian or Belarusian athlete supports the war. Take a listen.
As a world number one, you should be a role model. I think you are already a role model for many people, for many tennis players in the world. And as world number one is a very difficult status. And what is your message to the world? And because meanwhile, this situation with Ukrainian players show that you're twisting it as if Ukrainians hate you, but they do not say that they hate you. The only thing they want to know from you is either you condemn the war or you support the war. This is the only thing that Ukrainian players want to hear, and you're avoiding this question. You're coming up with different answers. So you say it's politics, even though missiles launched from Belarus does not choose if it's a politician or a tennis player. So what is your message as the world number one, and how can you sort it out with Ukrainian players that there is no more words hate or something like that? Thank you.
First of all, I'm not saying that they are saying they hate me.
You did many times.
No, but listen, first of all, when I get the question about Ukrainians, they ask me like, so you know that they hate you? Like not personally or politically, they asking the question. So I'm answering the question that if they hate me, like I don't feel anything like that. About the war situation, I said it many, many times. Nobody in this world, Russian athletes or Belarusian athletes, support the war. Nobody. How can we support the war? Nobody. No, normal people will never support it. Why we have to go loud and say that things? That's like, this is like 1 + 1, it's 2, you know? It's of course, we don't support war. And if we could affect anyhow the war, like if we could like stop it, we would do it. But unfortunately, it's not in our hands. That's the main question. That's the part about Ukrainians. The secondly, as the world number one, what's my message? Okay, let's get back to the country. I'm from a small country, from Belarus, who was working really hard to get to this level. And this is the message to a lot of young athletes who's from small countries, who don't have enough money, who's just from the small countries, that they can do well in this sport, and that they have to work hard and believe in themselves, and they can do whatever they want to. This is my main message as world number one. And I don't know if I'm a role model for a lot of people, or as I said, there's going to be people who don't like me, there's going to be people who likes me. So I'm focusing on people who likes me and who want me to be the best. You know, I want to show my best tennis. I want people to enjoy tennis matches, to enjoy my matches. So this is my message, to bring the joy for people.
To me, how I comprehend everything, Ukrainians like Kostyuk want Russian and Belarusian players to say more than no war, no peace. They want to hear Russia is wrong, Belarus is wrong for how they're treating Ukraine, because to Kostyuk, the no war statement hurts because they have no substance. That's what she said. But just like how Sabalenka acknowledged that it'll look bad for Ukrainians back home if they shake hands and show solidarity with Russians or Belarusians, it will not reflect that well on the Belarusian and Russian players if they're that vocal against their respective governments. It is risky for Russian players especially to speak out against the government directly, as Vladimir Putin literally enforces laws against speaking out against the war and against the government for invading Ukraine. Daria Kasatkina has been perhaps the most vocal Russian or Belarusian player regarding the war, and she even talked about how she now feels a little bit unsafe going back to Russia because of that and because of her coming out as gay. Even if the Russian or Belarusian players themselves won't be directly harmed for speaking out, their families can face retribution. That's why Sabalenka wasn't entirely right when she said sports and politics shouldn't mix, because that's simply not the case in countries like Russia, where athletes attend pro-war rallies. Now, in my opinion, a Russian or Belarusian player saying that they are against the war is not that big stand of justice like many people think. Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko said that he's against the war, but that basically means that he's against the struggle and wishes Ukraine would just lay down and stop fighting Russia and Belarus. A lot of people were critical of Aryna for training in Russia during the preseason for this year, but Sabalenka's boyfriend, he works in the city. Apparently the boyfriend's boss is pro-war and people took issue with that, but we're going way too far deep into the weeds at this point. People have been critical of Marta for not shaking hands with Russians and Belarusians because in their eyes, these players are not responsible or directly responsible for what's going on, but many people saying this simply have no idea what it's like to be in these Ukrainian players' shoes. Just putting myself in the shoes of these Ukrainian players, it just has to be hard when facing a Russian or Belarusian player, knowing in the back of your head that that player's country is responsible for the turmoil and destruction of your own country on top of losing to them. It's gotta be hard. Kostyuk and Lesya Surenko, who is also from Ukraine, even talked about having panic attacks before having to face Russian or Belarusian players. Surenko actually had a panic attack before facing Sabalenka at this year's Indian Wells tournament too. I think the whole handshake debacle is honestly a really good reminder for everyone that this war is still raging on, contrary to popular belief. It was the big news topic for about a month following that February invasion in 2022, but people eventually moved on to other things and kind of put it to the back of their heads. But this has been going on since that February invasion. These Ukrainian players are not just able to move on and forget like many people disassociated from the situation are or have done. Whenever they face a Russian or Belarusian player, that's a constant reminder of their war-torn country. Marta has said some questionable things about Russian and Belarusian players, but we have to remember that she is just 20 years old and she's going through something extremely difficult. Of course, she's not going to be the most articulate or she's not going to say things the best way. I also think journalists should take responsibility and kind of recognize that and dial it back when asking her questions about the war, because at this point she said all that she's needed to say and it just opens her up to even greater ridicule that's just not necessary for someone as young as she is. People should give grace to both Aryna and Marta in this situation, especially Kostyuk, and I hope she doesn't get booed the next time she tries to protect her peace. That's all for this video, and let me know in the comments your thoughts on the booing, plus Marta and Aryna's statements. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post more Roland Garros content. Thanks for watching. My name's Christian Bass Knight, and I'll see y'all next time here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.